I'm Catriella Friedman, this is Jonathan Mirvis, and up until now you've been talking about how to really understand social entrepreneurship, the social entrepreneur needs to look at the corporate entrepreneurship lexicon, and you've given examples for that. Now, as a social entrepreneur, what kinds of steps can you recommend for shifting an organization or shifting an idea of an organization into a social vision? What steps can you suggest?
I mean, ultimately, the question that you're asking is, how do we ensure that what we're doing is effective? Within the corporate world, it's measured in terms of ROI. What's the return on investment? And clearly the issue over here is, how do we ensure that what we're doing will ultimately accomplish the social vision? Because this is the core of what we're trying to do. And in this respect, it's quite important. Social entrepreneurs are mission-driven, and we're trying to really create a vision. So if we fail, we actually fail. It's quite serious. So let's make sure that we succeed. A key concept in considering what strategy we're going to adopt, I believe, is the theory of change. Everyone who's engaged in social change has a theory of change. That if I do X, it will result in Y. Every educator has a theory of change. Every parent has a theory of change. Anyone who's engaged in social activity believes that if I do something, it will result in the following result. As we all know, there's a tremendous gap between what we want to do and what really happens. And while sometimes we feel a little guilty, many times the reason why we did not succeed is not because we didn't do something well. The opposite, we did pretty well. But actually we had no chance. In other words, the odds were completely stacked against us. Now, when I talk about odds stacked against us, this is what I refer to the macro theory of change. The rules of the game as such do not allow us to succeed. A classical example, anyone who tries to organize an education activity around 1 or 2 hours a week and hopes that ultimately that will affect the soul of the individual, I think the chances of that happening are close to zero, because what affects people is basically much more holistic, much more comprehensive. In other words, if we are going to organize an education activity which is going to be 1 or 2 hours a week, it is critical that we align our goals with what is possible to achieve on a macro level. So the macro theory of change is, before we deal with it, is what are the constraints? What is possible and what is plausible? And if we understand what is plausible, it enables us to make the strategic step in order to succeed. Once we have adopted a macro theory change which is plausible, then comes the issue of, well, how do we make it happen? If our chances are good, well, it's critical that we succeed. What do we need to succeed? What are the activities? What are the personnel? And at least if you're an educator, I'm sure you clearly understand what I'm referring to.
Can you give an example of a paradigm within the Jewish world where the macro theory of change really works? In other words, the vision really works and it's plausible?
I think the issue of Jewish camping, and I'm reminded by the story of Jerry Silverman. Jerry Silverman is now the head of the Jewish Federation of North America. He actually came from Levi Strauss, and he had to head Jewish camping. And I asked Jerry, and I said, Jerry, what brought you to Jewish camping? And Jerry says, when my daughter came back from a Jewish camp, and I saw how happy she was, I realized this place can make it happen. Because Jewish camping, think about it. A kid goes for a vacation, has a great time, great recreation, great social time. No one is competing for the time. Ultimately, the whole environment is holistic and comprehensive. That's an environment which we can succeed. And which ultimately the question then is, for those involved in Jewish camping, is how do we take this highly plausible macro theory of change and institute a micro theory of change to really make it work.
So now think about your organization. What is your macro theory of change? And the most important question, is it plausible? If it is plausible and it does achieve the steps Jonathan just described, then what are the steps you can take in order to implement that macro theory of change?